Okay, it's 2 o'clock, and welcome to this episode of Vaishnava Voices podcast. My name is Sitapati Das, and Dana Devi is on her way.
Yay! I'm Daddy.
Welcome. So, today we're doing this is episode number 49 of Vaishnava Voices. It's what would this be? Part 4 in our Powerfully Participating in a Cult series. And today we're talking about the landmark curriculum, a Hare Krishna perspective on the landmark curriculum. Let's make sure that the audio is working fine. Okay, let me change it to this. There we go. I made a voice because it was using my headset. I'm going to take it off. Okay. So yesterday we talked about the Landmark Forum, which is the 3.5-day course at the beginning of the landmark curriculum. And then beyond that, there's an entire curriculum that you can participate in. There's various other courses that come after that. There's like a landmark curriculum for living. I don't think that they present that now. When I did the Landmark Forum in 2014, 16, and 18, they would have a big thing on the side which had the landmark curriculum for living, and it was the Landmark Forum, the 10-session seminar, which is included in your tuition for the Landmark Forum, the Landmark Advanced course, which is another 3.5-day weekend course, and then the Landmark Self-Expression and Leadership Program, which is a 3-month-long program where you develop a community project. And there are lots of things that were created as Landmark Self-Expression and Leadership programs that you're probably familiar with, but didn't know that they were created by participants in the Self-Expression and Leadership program. Landmark has been the primary catalyst in more than 100,000 community projects, by participants.
Yeah.
Like Are You OK Day is probably the most famous one in Australia, New Zealand region. People have heard of Are You OK Day. They've been, seen signage or something from it. That was started by a participant in the Landmark Self-Expression and Leadership program. It's not something that Landmark created. It was created by someone in a program using the coaching structures, the distinctions, the structures of the program to create their own project.
Yep.
It's important to them in the world. Anything that you want to say about any of that?
Nope.
Okay. So we kind of wanted to divide the conversation about participating in landmark programs into 3 parts: the Landmark Forum, and we kind of went through a philosophical kind of analysis from a Hare Krishna perspective. And then there's the participating in the other programs, the rest of that curriculum for living. There are other programs, like there's the curriculum for loving, it's called, which is the communications programs. And you can do unlimited number of seminars. I've done, I don't know now, it would be, actually, I do know how many seminars I've done. I've done 3 seminars.
Okay.
Yeah. I did 2 seminars back to back. I did the one that you get as part of your forum tuition. I think that one was...
Be Here, Be Now.
That was the one that you did, but the one that I did was Integrity, the Bottom Line, or Living Outside the Box. Yeah. There's another one that used to be called Landmark Forum in Action, which was the one that, after you did the forum, you went into Landmark Forum in Action seminar. But then at a certain point, it got changed to basically whatever seminar happened to be running at that time. They would say, this is the next seminar, and it would be whatever topic it was. I think it was Integrity, the Bottom Line was the one that I went into. Joy Jalal was a seminar leader at the time. She led that. Went through the seminar. Then at the end of that seminar, Joy said to me, you should do another seminar. And I was like, well, I'm doing the Introduction Leaders program. That's a leadership program. It's distinct from the consumer programs, if you like, at Landmark that I went into. And I said, I'm doing that program. And she said, well, that program is your leadership for others, but you need to do something for yourself. So I registered myself into this seminar called Causing the Miraculous. So that was the second seminar that I did. 2 seminars back to back. But here's something. Yesterday we talked about it was kind of like a philosophical analysis of the Landmark Forum, right?
Hare Krishna.
From a Hare Krishna perspective, yeah. But there's multiple levels and multiple ways to analyze it, that you can slice it in many different sankhya's that you can use. Just like from a Krishna consciousness perspective, the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, you can analyze the world in terms of the sankhya of Kapila from the third canto of the Bhagavatam, the 25 elements plus the soul and super soul. And then there's also, you could look at the world in terms of the three modes of material nature, right? There's also in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the 5 factors of action, which is a whole other sankhya, which is just kind of like just dropped in there in one verse. You know, the 5 factors of action: the performer, the place, the intention, the activity being performed. So you can do different kind of analyses of the landmark form itself, and what you'll see and what you'll get out of it will depend on which one you adopt. Like, you could sit through the whole landmark forum and be like, oh, this is just about brainwashing people and getting them to bring their friends to do more landmark forum. You could sit through the whole forum just thinking and being that way about it, and that's all you'll ever see or experience.
Who would do that anyways? Like,
oh,
why would you waste so much time? And
some people do that.
Like this, they have no life.
Yeah,
nothing going on.
Well, even just to touch on that point, you know, the bringing guests along to it, because people are like, oh, someone invited me to go to a landmark forum evening session, and I went there and it was just them trying to sell the landmark forum to me. You know, I went to a couple of evening sessions before I went to the landmark forum. I went to an advanced course evening session. I'd already registered to do the forum at that point. So it didn't occur for me as like, oh, they're trying to sell me to do the forum, because I wasn't sitting there thinking like, there was no decision for me to make about whether I was going to buy it or not. I was already registered in the forum, so I was looking at the content and I was looking at the people and like, what did they get out of doing this course? I was looking at it from through a different lens. So depending on how you're looking at it, you'll hear it in different ways. What you're listening for in the language of landmark determines what you'll see or hear. But hey, let's do this. Let's share what we got out of doing the landmark forum itself.
Okay.
You want to go first?
You do.
Okay. So when I went into the landmark forum, hey, Dave Javier, Doyle Natai, Hare Krishna. Thanks for tuning in. I did the landmark forum in 2014. Now, going into the landmark forum on the Friday, I'd been working in the same company for 10 years.
Yeah.
Obviously, I liked the company or I wouldn't have stayed there so long, right? But after 10 years of being in the company, seeing it growing through so many different stages and having different roles in the company, I'd reached a point where I was kind of like, for me to really go any further with this is going to involve like traveling overseas, or, you know, I'm kind of like, I've done this. And at the same time, although I was kind of dissatisfied with, you know, what I was doing and thinking I wanted to do something else, see something new, you know, experience new environments, I was in this situation where I basically had like, kind of like golden handcuffs, you know? You know, I was like at the top of my game. I was like, you know, I had all this knowledge of how the organization worked. So I didn't want to leave. So I was kind of trapped.
Yeah.
So I go into the landmark forum, and in the landmark forum, there was this conversation called the vicious cycle. And in the vicious cycle, the landmark forum leader creates the distinction that we assert that it's a natural human tendency to collapse what happened with the story that we tell ourselves about what happened. So what happened in the story, and they get collapsed together as a human being, and then immediately they become one thing. So we can no longer separate what happened in the story we tell ourselves about what happened. That's just, you know, for us, what happened. And often inside that collapse, there's some decision that we made about ourselves that has now become invisible to us. And it forms a constraint that we live in that constrains what we see as possible in our lives. So when those two things get uncollapsed, what happened in the story we tell ourselves about what happened, it opens up new vision of the world and new domains of possibility and freedom for action. New opportunities for action show up that you couldn't see before. Like, I could actually do that. So I'm in the forum and in that conversation, and there's a guy standing at the front of the room, and he's like in his 50s, late 50s, and he's talking with the forum leader, and the forum leader is coaching him like this. He's saying, listen, your father does love you. And the man says, no, well, why did he kick me down the stairs if he loved me? And the forum leader says, what happened is that your father was drunk and he kicked you down the stairs when you were 5. And then the story that you're telling yourself about that is that your father doesn't love you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see that those are two different things? Is what happened in the story you're telling yourself about what happened. And the man's just kind of like, no, why would he do that if he loved me?
Mm.
So he was holding on to that, like it really does mean that. Those two things are inseparable. One is inevitably a consequence of the other. So the forum leader says to him, is your father still alive? And the man says, no, he passed away. And the forum leader says, okay, I've led this forum to over 200,000 people over 35 years, and I'm going to prove to you right now that your father loves you. And he turns around to us, and there's like maybe 120 people there in this forum in Brisbane. And he says, how many of you here have got kids? How many of you have children? So everybody who has children put up their hands. I put up my hand. My son Prahlad at this stage is 12, And I look around and maybe about 70 people have got their hands up. I'm just estimating, guesstimate. Half, round half, a little bit over half. Anyway, he says, and how many of you love your children? And, I'm looking and everybody's still got their hands up. I've still got my hand up. And in that moment, I'm in the experience of my love for my son. Not as a theoretical idea, but like the experience of it. I'm thinking of my son. I'm like, yeah, I love my son. And then he says this. He says, and no one puts their hand down. He says, here's the thing about it, is that it is part of the being of human being that you have children and you just love them. You don't choose it. You don't have to generate it. It just happens to you. Your father loves you. And right in that moment, I got the experience that this experience of love that I have for my son, which is deeply personal, but it's not uniquely personal. It's a human experience, part of the being of human being. My father has exactly the same experience of me, of his love for me. It's just automatically there. It's the same thing that he's experiencing. Just like we're breathing air here. People are breathing air in China. People are breathing air in Europe. We're all breathing air. So, we have that experience in common. So the experience of love for my son is the experience of love that my father has for me. In that moment, I fully got it. And what had been in my blind spot is that I'd been living my life that my father didn't love me. And furthermore, it had been impacting me because Prahlad had gotten to a certain age, and then I'd been about it that I don't know how to be a father to my son because I didn't see my father modeling something for me. So I don't know what to do. So in the break, I rang Prahlad and I said, I love you. And I've been getting around pretending that I know what I'm doing as your father when actually, underneath it, I actually have been thinking that I don't know what to do. But here's the thing about it is you're here and I'm here and I don't know what to do. There's no manual that came, how to be a father. There's no test of how do you get it right. There's no right answer to that. You're here and I'm here and we can create this together. And I don't know what I'm doing, but we can discover it together. And then I walked out of the forum on the Monday and walked into the HR department and handed in my resignation. And they said to me, where are you going to now? Because they assumed that I had some other job that I was going to. I found another job and I'm going there. And so I say, I don't have one. I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I do know that I can discover it. And so I didn't see how, that area of life was impacting me in that way. I didn't even, if you had asked me about it, I wouldn't have even articulated it as an experience of life. I live in the experience that my father doesn't love me. Now, even people around me might have been able to say that, like, hey, something like that. They could see it, but it was invisible to me. It was invisible to me how it was impacting my relationship with my son. And it was also invisible to me how seeing that and getting that opened up an opening that made a difference in this area of my career. So that's the kind of like surprising results that people get in the 3.5 days of the Landmark Forum. And people are like, well, how does that happen? I mean, I just walked you kind of through it, but people are having those kind of like quantum breakthroughs, like not linear. I got a little bit better at doing something, or, I got a little bit more confident, but like, no kidding, like paradigm shifting breakthroughs because you see something about yourself that you couldn't see before.
Yeah.
Now, if I hadn't continued in the landmark curriculum, I don't know what would have happened from that point, because I did go on to create like a new career, a whole new career for myself. But I used the structures of the following programs in the curriculum to do it. I kind of think that it would be almost not dangerous, but if you go through and you make some, like, if you don't stabilize and continue to expand, this is why when I explain to people about the seminar series and why it's so important, it's because it allows you to continue to integrate, solidify, and expand on the breakthroughs that you make in the landmark forum. Because people do have radical breakthroughs, but if I just gone in there and quit my job and then left and then gone back to life as normal after that, well, I don't know what would have happened. And then I might have blamed the landmark forum. I might have been like, I did the forum and then I quit my job and it didn't go well, and so it was all because of the forum. It ruined my life. But I continued to expand it, and then I can share about the breakthroughs and the expansion of that in the other programs. And why don't you go ahead and share something that you got from the landmark forum?
Yeah, just touching the last part that you mentioned, like, people blaming the landmark forum for not getting what they thought or expect to get it. But what it takes place in the landmark forum is, like you said, your mentality, your attitude, or whatever you take in there, it actually is blocking what you want to get out of it. For example, if I go with the attitude of like, I don't know, I don't think anything can help me, and I don't think that is true, and I continuously reinforcing that, like being kind of like stubborn about it, you will get that. You will get like that attitude with yourself. You're not opening yourself to this world of like what is out there, and what is out there that I am, what do you call this, blocking. That could be very beneficial for my life and the way I am being, or my future. And yeah, so we have to be extremely careful, like how we set our mindset there, because it's very important, how it works. And in your sharing, people might think like, oh, that sounds like easy, I can do that without even going to a forum. Like,
well, the thing about that is that you see things about yourself that you couldn't see before. I know. That's what does it. It's not landmark doesn't do it. You go there and you see the promise of the landmark forum is that anything that you want for yourself in your life is available out of your participation in the landmark forum. Yeah. Landmark doesn't do this to you. It is your participation, how you participate, how you utilize the tools, the experience, the whole thing, how you leverage it does it. And this thing about people might think, oh, it's just like, possibility thinking, because there's a whole thing. There's a whole thing called possibility thinking. The guy's name will come to me. He's a second generation pastor, and he has Robert Schuller. So Robert Schuller, his whole thing is about possibility thinking. And before I did the forum, I listened to this audio book called The Magic of Thinking Big by David M. Schwartz. I would listen to it every year. And at the beginning of the book, he covers this idea of this, I think Henry Ford said it, both the man who thinks he can and the man who thinks he can't are right. And human beings, we above all else, we'd rather be right. So it's kind of like the booby prize. It's easy to do every time. Like, you can't do something, you can be right about why it's the economy or the government or, and that's why I couldn't do it. And now you're right about that. And like, you may not have been able to do the thing, but you won the second prize of being right about why you couldn't do it. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And human beings buy themselves off of that all the time. So the beginning of Magic of Thinking Big, he talks about this exercise that they give people where they say, what about if we, like, how would we get rid of prisons? And when people immediately go, well, that's just not possible, you wouldn't be able to do it for these reasons, it means that they are never thinking about how you would actually do it. But if you stand in that, okay, that's possible, and how would we do it? There was a guy called Edward de Bono who had all these books about lateral thinking, and it was like putting on these different hats, colored hats, to do lateral thinking. And an exercise he said in there is like, given that thing there, like, how do we get rid of prisons, a lateral thinking exercise you can do to generate possibilities. There you go, monkeys. You just throw in anything random, like plastic cases or anything, like flags. You throw in some random thing, and now you try to generate a connection between flags and getting rid of prisons, or monkeys and getting rid of prisons. And that forces you to think outside of the linear logical pathways that lead to inevitable conclusions, to thinking outside the box. Now, all of those kind of things are useful, and I had studied those and spent a lot of time dwelling in them, but it's the conclusions about yourself that are inevitable that provide invisible constraints, even with all of that. But if you go in there with this idea of lateral thinking, possibility thinking, all of those kind of things, and apply yourself to the Landmark Forum and apply the Landmark Forum to yourself, your participation in the Landmark Forum, man, it's so powerful. It's so good. Venugopal said to me, Sitapati, you're already up to a whole lot of stuff, but doing the Landmark Forum will be like putting rocket fuel in your engine. And he was right. Yeah. So what did you get out of doing? Share something that you got out of doing the Landmark Forum.
I got many things. One of the big constraints for me that I discovered there, and it's opened the whole world for me about that decision that I made, was that I was scared to enter into relationships. And how that was covered up was that I like being a selective. Selective that I'm not saying this means selective in the sense like it has to be this way, it has to be that way, and the person has to meet these characteristics and that characteristics, as otherwise it's not going to work out, and so on. And it's valid for sure. All of that is valid. Being selective is valid. However, what was behind it was being too scared to enter into a relationship. So post my relationship that ended, I was even way more cautious and scared to enter into a relationship, that I spent 10 years being single. And within those 10 years, obviously there were people that I talked to, and I, basically to the point, even engagement proposal, being engaged, engagement ring, all of that, I put it aside. But because the person, when I asked my question, is this someone that you want to spend your life? I was too scared to enter into a relationship. There was something out in that person that doesn't match my standards. And, just out. And not only that, also marriages. And so, yeah, I went like that. And imagine like all of these years, how many people have been turned down, and heartbroken. And it wasn't them, it actually was me, where I was, like the fear of getting in a relationship, the fear of not trusting that person. And what I discovered was, when I was a young kid, was with my mother. That's the first thing that I have in my mind, and my vision and my experience was this woman that I consider her my mother. One day she was talking to this lady that I never met before, and out of the blue she just comes and calls me and says, "Hey," introduced me to this lady and said, "This is your mother." And that was the moment where I made a decision, like, I am not wanted. I'm being betrayed here. It was the most painful moment, and that's what I decided.
So there's the what happened, and then the story you tell yourself about what happened.
Yes.
And they collapse together, and it includes some decision that you make about yourself.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. And then those decisions about there's a decision about yourself and the world, right? They go together.
Yeah, definitely. And I wasn't aware, like all of these years, I wasn't aware of that. What I was experiencing like fear, and I was just like, presenting itself like I'm being too selective and all of that. But the underneath thing was this decision that I made, and being betrayed, and of course that was valid for that person, for that child who, that situation that presented to me as a child, I decided that was a betrayal.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. Anyways, so that's what I discovered, and I tell you what, that decision, although was applying to me, it actually have
Just
a
running your life.
exactly, and it actually colored my life, colored the way I see things, colored the way my relationships were,
Yeah.
and 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 I thought that's how life is. That's how relationships are. And you cannot, sometimes you cannot do anything about it. You just let it be. That's it. Accept things as they are. But when you see things that accept as they are, it is what it is. There's a sense of resignation there. You cannot do anything better than this. It is just the way it is, and resign. And to the point when you resign, it actually becomes like you are blind to do that. You actually resign to it.
Yeah, it's the way the world is. It's like, and you're right about that. So
Yeah.
being right about that on
Mhm.
top of everything else is
Yeah.
like, wow. The resignation, yeah.
It's like a huge cover up.
Okay, so you saw that.
Mm-hmm.
There used to be a board in the Landmark Forum that said, in the Landmark Forum, the constraints that the past imposes on your view of life disappear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you actually get to confront and see that as it is, it's like, wow.
So
and
what happened to you when you saw that?
What happened to me is just like, I spent so many years of my life doing this.
People often say that. They do the forum and they're like, I wish I had done this sooner.
I did have that too. I did really thought like, if only someone could have introduced me to this at my young age, I would be in a different place.
Mm-hmm.
I would be in a different situation. I wouldn't have gone all what I have gone, and I wouldn't have put people through what I put people through. I wouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
So that if you can see the impact of that is big. If you are, of course, self-introspective person and observe things as they are, like, oh my goodness, this is actually a big deal. And that's what's happening with these days, human life. Like, we do things and we think this way, and we think what we're thinking is right, and because we're feeling this feeling, and that feeling solidifies what we think, and that is correct, that is right, and nobody else tell me what to do because I am correct. But when we think that way, we actually closing ourselves in this little bubble, and we don't have that world of expansion. What is in there is what I'm doing, what I'm saying, and what I'm feeling. Is that right? Because feelings changes all the time. As not long ago, I was feeling really tired. All I wanted to do is like go to sleep, and I don't want to interact with anyone.
Mm-hmm.
But what am I missing? If I went to sleep and not interact with the world, well, what would I be missing? Many other things, activities, maybe, experiences, and situations that I could be produce during the time that I will be asleep. And I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying, like, feelings always change, always. And if we're going to create something permanent with feelings and emotions and thoughts, we're going to be trapped in this little world.
That kind of touches on the advanced course, which we'll get into. But so what became possible for you out of that? Like for me, I walked out of the Landmark Forum, and then just after having been stuck in my job, for a couple of years at least, because it sort of kicked in around year 8 for me there. I just had the freedom to just quit my job without knowing what I was going to do next. Yeah.
Well, definitely I didn't quit my relationship. So afterwards, what now after?
Yeah, what did that make possible?
Well, being fully invested in my relationship.
You lowered your standards and married Cedar Putty.
No, I don't mean that silly. I didn't mean that. I mean, like, I am fully aware of who I am, and my decision has a lot to do in my life. For example, you appear in my life. I am in a relationship with you, and as a different human beings, there will be always this clashing thing. But that doesn't mean I have to just like, you know what, it doesn't work. See you later, because that's something that I did in the past. Like, it's not working. See you later. Not my problem anymore. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It is more about, okay, we have this thing. What is this about, and how do we work it out? Rather than not wanting to work with the issue and also getting rid of the baby. I mean, getting rid of the person, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like they saying people like, don't throw the bath water with the baby.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, look, people can do like couples counseling, communication thing about communications practices between you. But if one of the people or both of the people are operating with this invisible decision that like I'm unwanted and I'm going to be betrayed, it doesn't matter how many techniques you apply. The person applying the techniques is always going to be about it, that no, this and it won't work. The 5 factors of action in the Bhagavad Gita, it's in 1841. Let's bring up the verse so we can really link it to the Shastra. Oh, look at that. I've got the tab open right here. It's 1814. Yeah, I was looking at it this morning. Adishtanam tatakarta karanam cha pritag vidam vividash cha pritak shesta daivam chaivatra panchamam, the 5 factors. The place of action, the body, the performer, the various senses, the many different kinds of endeavor, and ultimately the super soul. These are the 5 factors of action. So where the forum goes to work, the forum goes to work on the performer of the action. You don't learn about new actions that you can take. When I was trying to figure out what the forum was about, so Venugopal took me to an evening session, a work day, a self-expression leadership program work day, and I missed most of the introduction. The part that I caught was where Paul Songhurst, the self-expression leadership program leader, was drawing a circle, and he was saying that, there's what you know, there's what you know that you don't know. And both of those are a function of knowing, because you know that you know, and you know what that, you know that you don't know these things. Like, I know I don't know how to speak Chinese. I know I don't know how to fly a plane. So that's actually a function of knowing. It's what I know that I don't know. But the area that the Landmark Forum goes to work on is the area where you don't know, and you don't even know that you don't know. It's literally a blind spot. It's invisible. It doesn't exist in your conscious awareness. And it's those aspects of the performer that don't exist, that don't exist in your conscious awareness. So I just heard that part, and I hadn't heard of anything that said, I'd heard of that idea before, but I'd never seen anything where they claimed that this is a technology that can give you a reliable access to what you don't know, and you don't know that you don't know it. I was like, okay, man, how do you do that? But I was asking people who were there, what did you get? Did you do the forum? What did you get out of it? The first guy tells me I'm a musician. I wasn't doing much with it. Then I did the forum, and I've just released my 5th music video on YouTube. The next guy tells me I was a truck driver. I did the forum. I started my own business. I just sold that one, and I've started my 2nd business. And then the third guy says to me, like, I grew up in Sydney. My dad's from the islands. We never really talked or anything. And then I did the forum, and I had a powerful conversation with my father and told him that I love him, and he did the Landmark Forum, and now we have this amazing relationship where we're in communication all the time. And so I was left thinking, what kind of course does that? Like, it's obviously not a course for musicians. It's obviously not a business course, but somehow they're able to what I can see has happened here is each of these people has had a breakthrough in their effectiveness and something that's important to them and that they're committed to, and that prior to doing the landmark forum, they were constrained in that area. And then somehow in the 3.5 days of the forum, they got an access to the constraint in that area being removed, and they're now able to perform in that area at a higher level of effectiveness. So it's the kind of coaching that you'll get if you're like getting high-end sports psychology coaching or business mindset coaching. And all of those kind of coaches, the technologies and the techniques that they use come from, this whole kind of realm that the landmark forum is like this, like expertly packaged and delivered experience in that realm. And it's by the access to the performer. So yeah, like you do communications, couples communications, couples counseling and that. But if you're unable to distinguish some collapsed decision that one of the performers in that performance, because marriage is a performance.
Yeah.
Everything's a performance. Bodybuilding is a performance. Exercise is a performance. Singing is a performance. Cooking is a performance. So when you look at performance, it is by distinguishing something, performer distinguishing something about themselves is your biggest access to your elevated levels of performance, particularly quantum breakthroughs. Not just a little bit, more, better, different, but like a different world. Like, for 10 years before I did the forum, I could not have a relationship work. And then, I did the forum and saw this decision I'd made about myself and the impact that it was having on my relationships. And then once that disappeared, I had access to performance in relationships that wasn't available to me prior to that.
Yeah, it's like you have to do it to experience it and, to live that life. It's not like a sentence we can say it is this, because it's beyond what you can explain, what you get out of there, what you get to discover that. And that is the power of the distinctions they use in the landmark forum. Now, people are, even one thing like people were like, oh, I done Tony Robbins, I did this and that, and I would never have access to this. It's like, yeah, brother. Because there is another thing as well about this. I was, I'm training the trauma therapy thing, and we look into the behavior and the part of the brain and trauma, how it works and all of that. And I was looking like many of the counselors and all of this talking therapy only goes on the frontal part of your brain. It only has access to the linguistic part of your brain. You can have some things, obviously, you discover some things, but where do you have more powerful access? When I am doing this landmark forum, it goes in the subcortical part of your brain, where it's the decisions, the memory that you are storing. It's like in a computer, you have your hard drive, right?
Yep.
It has the memory part. And what happens is the brain is storing all of that, and the trauma is stored in the different parts of your body. Yeah. Now, when I look from that perspective, like the physiology of the trauma and all of that, I noticed that through the landmark forum is you go straight in the subconscious part where you made the decision, and you get that out. And you have this amazing access where you made that decision and when you made that decision. Now, and people say, like, no, I can actually do that. Like, no, you cannot actually do that. You really need someone powerful to give you access to where you need to get, and you will do it yourself. That's why you get to discover. Where, in trauma therapy, it will take you a long time to get access to that. And you have to be someone very powerful in that therapy as well to take you through that. But it takes long time, and you get to re-experience the trauma, and you don't want to get there. So it's a work there. But with the landmark forum, you go into this detail when that happened and what happened.
They really say Okay, I've got 3 things I want to touch on here.
Mm-hmm.
In the Landmark Forum, they say this is going to be like a roller coaster ride, and the most important thing is that you don't get off the roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if you go into that kind of environment and that conversation and eject partway through, that can cause an issue for you.
Yeah.
The other thing that can happen is if you develop an opinion about what you see happening with other people there, like people, they go like, oh, you know, the leader was abusing this guy and he was traumatized by it. But it's like, there's what happened, and then there's the story that you told about what happened.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the guy was traumatized or the leader was abusing them or something like that. You know, you can develop those kind of opinions there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've participated in lots of programs there. I've never seen anything that, you know, I've seen things that you could say that about, but, you know, I can see how people could say that or could generate that kind of like opinion or assessment of something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just like, you know, like you'll read accounts of people, you know, online. They say, oh, you know, the leader was abusing people and haranguing them and forcing people to this, that, and the other. Anyway, you know, like this goes more to the advanced course about like what is reality. So that's one thing I wanted to touch on there. The other thing is about LGAT's, large group awareness training. Before I go to that point, what you said about linguistics and how talking therapy and everything works at the level of like the frontal, yeah. So in the Upanishads, it says the Supreme Brahman is that going towards which words turn back, they turn away. Like it cannot be words trying to grasp the Supreme Brahman. They go around it and turn back, and they remain inside the material realm. So this was a really great explanation of that Tripurari Swami gave. He said, like, so the impersonalists, they will say that there is nothing that can be said about the supreme absolute truth because it is indescribable through words. Words cannot capture it. They cannot even approach it. Going towards it, they turn away. Whereas we, the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we say that means that not enough can ever be said about it. And so Ananta Shesh, the 1,000-headed serpent that lies down at the bottom of the material universe and on whom Lord Vishnu is reclining, has 1,000 mouths, and all of those mouths are continuously chanting the glories of the supreme absolute truth. No mouth ever repeats anything that any of the other mouths have said, nor do they ever repeat themselves, and they do that for eternity, and they never run out of things to say. So we say that not enough can ever be said about it. But the point here is that the linguistics, and this is why people coming out of the Landmark Forum cannot explain what happened there. And then people can slice it and dice it in many different ways. It's just an extended sales presentation for their other courses, you know. They get people up there and give them some kind of dopamine hit, and it's a large group awareness training. Yeah, you can take all that, or you can go in there and out of your participation in it and how you participate, you can generate extraordinary results in your own life. And people do that, and they're unable to explain how or why that happened. But it is because fundamentally, at the base of the whole thing, it is a transformative encounter with nothing. It's a transformative encounter with the level of being, which is Atman or Brahman. Like beyond the mind, beyond the machinery, the identity, the ahankara, and words cannot reach to that level. So it's impossible for people to capture it. You know, like they'll say all this kind of stuff. Different people will describe it in completely different ways. What'd you get out of doing the forum? Oh, well, I was a truck driver. I started my own business, just sold it, started another one. I was a musician, just did my 5th music video, you know? All that kind of stuff. People will describe it in so many different ways. No one will ever capture it. And then to this part about, again, part of how it works, this idea of the large group awareness training, LGAT. So part of how the Landmark Forum experience is packaged and delivered is that it taps into the social element of the human brain. Because if we have a look at that example of the couple and the communication and the performance in there, there is like the performer, and then there is the performance. And so speech is a performance, and it is a performance of the performer, but the performer is not pure Atman speaking. The performer has collapsed. The ahankara, the mind, the different anartas, the different undistinguished decisions and the samskaras are all collapsed. And the performer is a composite of all of that. So who is speaking as a conditioned soul is what we would say in Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
So who is speaking as the conditioned soul? And we know from the Sankhya or the analysis of the three modes that, there's speech in three different modes, right? There's everything in the three modes, which are composites of
Pretty
these
much
things.
everything is in the three modes. Yeah.
So what happens is that you basically create around you a social environment that is both the product of your conditioning and reinforces it because it's consistent with it. And you build patterns of being and acting in your own brain, habits. Oh, this is who I am. That's just the way I am. I'm indecisive, or I'm this way, or I'm that way.
And don't tell me what to do.
Or it goes out to another level. It's not even you being responsible for it. It's a way of being of yourself. It's a way that the world is. Oh, these people are just not up. Nah, there's something wrong with this one. That one, no. For this reason, can't select this one. You don't actually own about it that there's something, I have some kind of insecurity and like commitment phobia kind of thing. But it's the other people, right? So that's the next level. But you have created for yourself a social environment that reinforces that. And the social part of your brain as a human being, like locked into that environment, it's like it's firing and it's locking you into that.
Yeah.
So when you put people into this environment of 3.5 days with people who are being authentic about their inauthenticities, they're being vulnerable, they're sharing about and discovering these things. One of the things that happens is your mirror neurons in your brain start firing. It starts activating brain pathways that are inaccessible to you in your normal daily living of your life because your brain is firing along predictable patterns and it's being fired in response to patterns around you, which is why during the pandemic, when everybody got sent home and was suddenly disrupted from their, normal ways of being and acting in their normal social environments, suddenly, a large percentage of the human population became conspiracy theorists because they were suddenly able to think outside of the social conditioning and indoctrination that they'd been subjected to. And so the way the Landmark Forum works, part of it is being immersed in that environment gives you the opportunity to activate brain pathways that are otherwise inaccessible to you.
You're talking a part of people reacting to things and like having their opinions about the landmark, or the leader has been abusing this and so and so. Even that is something something that already occurred, learned through linguistic that this is what it is, and that's why you're getting that information back. I heard when you inquire more into the person, it's abuse. And it's abusive because the leader is doing this and continues, digging more and digging more. That's abuse. They have this already idea there.
Or that, it's dangerous because you're getting people to reveal like traumatic things that have happened or experiences that have impacted them. And
yeah, but you know what? And that there is two things. There is two people and one person dealing here. The person that is observing and already that person knows through the years of experience, through what they read, or through what they're being told, that is that person here. But the person, and also that person as a child, the experience of the person as a child is interacting here. The way of, not the adult, that child that experiences something similar.
It's the samskara,
the conditioning.
Even to analyze it as that, you have to compare it to something in your past experience, and you categorize it like this is,
Let me finish.
Okay. It's very exciting.
I know, right? You're just like, okay. So, but if you take yourself away from that and you just that adult without that child experiencing all of that, it's a completely different person in one person. And what I see, or this is my observation, is people react to something because they, or like the conditioning already, they are playing up that role. freaking out about it.
Mm.
But it's not the adult self that is free all of those conditionings. Imagine the person would be pure without any conditioning. The person would understand that as a abuse. It will understand only as like, this is an inquiry. It's like a digging, taking the dirt out, digging, taking the dirt out. Okay, what else is in there? Oh, I have this dirt in here. Okay, let me take this one. Let's remove it. And these leaders are so powerful because they can understand how far the person is going. And also, my observation is the leader is checking with the person. This is like through my trauma therapy as well. You check with the person. Are you okay with that? Do you want to continue doing that? Yes. So the person, the adult self, is dealing with all of these conditionings that that little child had in himself. Now, many people are adults, but there is something about them in the child self of that person that is playing up that is reacting to that. But it's not the adult. As an adult, obviously, you make decisions about things, but you already have a different concoction, right? Different wiring of the brain that you can make it up this way or that way. But the little child inside you that has all of these conditionings, all of these traumas, all of these observations or experiences is out there playing up in the adult me. That's my observation, that like there is a hurt child, a vulnerable child in you that experience all of that is playing it in you, and is you experiencing and you reacting to that. And that is powerful in the landmark forum, where you actually they have access to that child you with the experience and the decisions that child you made at some point in the childhood.
Yeah, you get access to that.
You get access.
You see, you can see that.
Yeah.
If it's available to you out of your participation in it. It's how you participate that determines the experience.
Yeah. And then you know what? It's so powerful when you come with this open mind and say, you know what? There's so much that I'm going on in my life and I don't want to do this anymore. They're tired.
Yeah, that's the thing.
They're tired. And so I just want to get rid of this and be that someone that I'm anchoring to be, you know? And those people have the most amazing realizations. They feel so happy after that. They feel that sense of aliveness and freedom and lightness in themselves.
Yes.
It is so potent. Now, someone that has this mentality of this, like so close, resign, and so right about the resignation.
I will make the landmark forum fit inside my view of the world, rather than using the landmark forum to introspect and view myself.
Yeah, it's like you view yourself in the sense of like, this is a mirror that I can look at myself and I see all of these imperfections that I created for myself. And it's like a mirror. And then like when you for example, this is, I don't know if it's gonna land as a good analogy or example. Like if I do my makeup right without a mirror, I will try my best, right? And I will say like I did my best, right? And this is who I am, and look good because I say so. I look good. But here comes the landmark form, the distinctions. Okay, I want you to look at yourself, and you go, oh my God, you freak out, like, no, I don't want to look at myself because that is, I say so that I'm beautiful and it's perfect, everything that I done. Okay, but have a look, just have a look, and then my eyebrow, I painted underneath or whatever, I just did like a complete thing that is not actually according to, just giving a bit of potency on the areas that I want to, or so it happens that. So the landmark is actually like that mirror.
The landmark forum.
The landmark forum actually, and the distinctions where you get to see yourself, where the areas you haven't seen yourself.
If you're willing to look. But if you're looking at the leader and just making assessments and adding opinions to whatever's happening, rather than looking at yourself, I mean, whatever. You can go through and complain about the color of the carpet if you want.
Yeah, that's a good point that you're pointing out here. And my first that was just like, observing people with that. And the thing about the human beings is you always right there with your assessments and judgments. Now, this is the thing. Human beings can say, no, I'm not judgy, you know, I'm this, I'm accepting of this and that. Like, you are assessing every second. You look at this bottle, you're assessing, oh, the color and there's details, oh, there's something. You already seeing like the little things in that bottle.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know what I mean?
well, if nothing else, just in my visual perception of this room, I'm automatically, subconsciously, and immediately estimating the distances, how much things weigh, all that kind of stuff. And it's all happening unconsciously.
Yeah, you
just by
assessing and you
looking.
judging. Yeah.
I just look and immediately I've assessed the distances. If I needed to reach for something, I don't need to think, oh, that thing over there, how far away is that? It's all of that assessment and judgment is happening. I like this, I don't like that. That looks like it's good to eat. That's not, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So that is this natural thing about human beings.
Yeah, that's
And
the
that is-
operation of the mind.
Yeah, and there is nothing you can do about it except that you get to know yourself more.
Well, you can the only thing to do about that is to get that that's happening. That's all there is
Yeah.
to it.
So be aware that you're doing that, and then you either go immerse and continue doing that and having a hellish life, or you see that like, okay, this is part of me, and I'm assessing and I'm judging all the time, and that is just
It's part of my experience.
Part of your experience, and then you can separate yourself.
Yeah, the mind is always doing that.
Yeah.
It says the mind is sankalpa vikalpa. The function of the mind is to accept and reject.
Mm-hmm.
So it is always immediately categorizing things
Yeah.
according to these different categories.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the Bhagavatam, it describes the stage called Chittabhas.
Okay.
So Chittabhas is the stage. Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami, in a conversation, was describing it as the stage of when the soul descends into the material world.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at it, it's actually the development of consciousness in infants, apparently. What happens is that in the initial stage, all of the sense perceptions are flowing into the consciousness, but they're indistinct.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what happens to like children if they're blind from birth. They can't restore their sight because the neural wiring of their brain has not discriminated the sense perception as a separate thing.
Mm-hmm.
When you take some psychedelics, you get this thing called synesthesia, which is where the sense perceptions become indistinct and they meld into each other.
Mm-hmm.
So sound coming out of the speaker is experienced as like colors. So the sound coming out is causing these colors to appear, because what's happening is that the sensory perception from the senses is flowing into the mind, but it's now being interpreted through the different sensory centers, right? So the discrimination of the sense of sound from the sense of sight, smell, all of that stuff, and the way that they're distinctly experienced as distinct things. You might confuse the sound of a door slamming for, a car door slamming for a house door slamming, but you're not going to confuse the sight of a bird with the sound of a door slamming, because one is a sound and one is a sight, right? Because sight and sound are distinct. But in the stage of Chittabhas, which means like the shadow of knowledge, Chit means knowledge, Abbas means like a shadow. Chittabhas means it's the state where all of the sense perceptions are flowing in and they're all just indistinct. So the first stage of the development of material consciousness is the distinction between sight, sound, hearing, rasanam, shrotam, chakshu, rasanam cha, granam, the taste, touch, all of those things get distinguished. Then within those, there's a categorization that takes place so that, when a baby is creating these categorizations, it doesn't know the difference between a door and a bell when it looks at them. But what happens is that after a while, it creates these associative categories, like that is a door. So once you understand what a door is, you can go to 2,000 years in the past, you can go to another country and you can walk in there and you can see that's a door. You've never seen that door before. You've never even seen a door that looks like that door, but you understand that's a door because it has many different kind of characteristics. Like it's in the right place. It obviously has that function. There's a whole world of those associations that gets created. And those are the associations that allow us to operate in the world because they're distinctions A door is distinct from a window.
Mm-hmm.
A wall is distinct from a door. You don't try to walk through the wall, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know to walk through the door,
Mm-hmm.
so you never try walking through the wall.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is that things become collapsed together in your associative categories of distinctions that you operate with,
Mm-hmm.
that now mean that, and it's all based on survival, how to survive, how to not die as an organism, a survival machine.
Mm-hmm.
And then those provide constraints, because it could be, this is just an out there example to give you an example of it, that there is a wall in your house that is not really a wall. It has a part of it that's like a hologram or whatever that you can actually walk through, but you will never try, because you have created the understanding that you can't walk through a wall.
Yeah.
And so it's looking at those, and that's invisible to you as you never think about that as you walk through your house. You simply know that you walk through the doors, and you never try walking through a wall. But there are areas of your life that exist like that are not real. Conclusions that you've come to about yourself and others and about the world and about the way the world is and the way the world operates, that are as invisible to you as your conclusions about doors and walls. You never think of that. You never revisit it. But those conclusions are actually erroneous, and they're limiting what's possible for you. So you don't take the action, to start your own business or to, go into that relationship, because there's some invisible constraint you're in. So the way the Landmark Forum works is by uncollapsing those. You then, as it says, the constraints that the past imposes on your view of life disappear. Now, what's dangerous about that is that those associative categories are constructed by the biological organism as a defense mechanism in order to be able to survive and reproduce and ensure the survival of your children. So this is what freaks people out about it, is what's happening there is the defense systems, like it's like immune system and autoimmune diseases, right? So your immune system gets triggered by something that it shouldn't be. Why don't we turn the heater on? No, let's turn it on so we're warm.
It's okay, I can call myself for this.
The immune system gets triggered.
Yeah.
And it starts attacking things that it wasn't supposed to attack. And so, the mind operates in a similar kind of way. It's this system that develops these defense mechanisms. They're designed to keep you alive, and they can become like overactive. And so now, not only is this thing keeping you alive, it's also tanking relationships, and it's operating in your blind spot, and you can't see that it's operating. Yeah. So the Landmark Forum gives you an access into distinguishing the operation of those things.
Yeah, like it's good that you explained about the physiology of the whole, the child growing, and how the child, because it doesn't have a linguistic part to explain, talk, and all of that, it's making sense of the world, distinguishing things, and making, having that experience already as a baby, isn't it? Even as a fetus. That fetus is having already experiences, with the food, and that the experiences are made by the five senses, right? Was including the mind. So the mind is just already creating all of that. Your vision is already seeing that the color changes, or the design. Also, your ears already hearing the sounds. What sound is melodious? What sound is scary? And your touch is already, palpating what is soft and what feels nice. Is it cold or is not? And or it's rough and spiky, and it's quite, you're already making sense. This is dangerous because it hurts. You know what I mean? And the mind is already categorizing. This is pleasant. This is unpleasant. All of that. So it's all about experiences that the child is going. And when the child is going through that, already the child is making decisions. If a child touches something that is really hot, like makes a decision, don't touch that because it burns and it hurts. It's all about decisions. You're making decisions about everything, everything. You somehow, you walk in and then you fall down, and then you look into the, just like, what, oh, there's the rock. Next time I'm gonna make sure I'm looking what I'm doing or whatever. you make a decision to do something in order not to have a fall again. You know what I mean? Everything is a decision. So for human beings to say, I'm perfect, I have nothing to work about myself, and so, it's like you must be aware that you always making a decision about things. And those decisions that you're making could be internalized and they become part of you. And that is starting to run your life, your future, you know? And those decisions doesn't live in the past. Those decisions are moved to your future and you live in there. And that is why, your life is going the way it's going.
Yeah. So another way of putting past
Mhm.
and future,
Mhm.
because, that's a presentation of how the forum works,
Mhm.
the decisions that you made in your past, they don't live in your past, they're in your future.
Mhm.
So the past exists as memories and decisions. The shortcut of that is like, you don't remember everything. What you do is something happens and then you encode the information as a decision about, or an associative
Mhm.
decision
With experience.
Yeah, so you're not analyzing every moment, going like, oh, let me look through my memories. No, you go to the decision
It's
that was
automatic.
made based on the memories.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the way that past gets put into your future is that it comprises assessments of the future. Assessments. And one part of the assessments of the future is that a mood is an automatic unconscious assessment of the future.
Mhm.
So, in the section of the introduction where it's like, I'm at work and I'm like, I'm, it's like swelteringly hot. The air conditioner's broken. I've got all the stuff that I've got to get done. But how do I feel? I feel happy because I've got 2 tickets to go to Hawaii tomorrow, right? On holiday. So what that mood is, that's giving you your mood in that moment, is your assessment of the future. So it's your automatic unconscious assessments of the future that provide your moods, but your automatic and unconscious assessments of the future are all informed by the encoded associative experiences that, we call them decisions. It's a whole set of those things that are creating those. And so they drive your experience in the present and the actions that you take towards the future that create your ongoing reality of your life as the performer. So those encoded decisions are part of the performer and your performance.
Yeah. Unfortunately, of the performance,
I'll give you a great example of that.
Okay, go ahead.
So out of doing the Landmark Forum and further Landmark programs, I competed in bodybuilding competitions, right? Created that as a possibility and used the distinctions for performance to win the open division of classic physique natural bodybuilding competition. So it's the future that you're living into that gives you who you're being in the present. So I was like, there's like going to the gym and training. Some people are going to the gym and they're working out. They're just doing exercise. Other people are going to the gym and they're training. They're training for something. They have specific, a future goal or something they're training for.
Yeah.
Then the next level is you go to the gym and you're competing. Turn the heater on, honey.
It's okay.
I'm cold. Come on, turn it on,
Keep
please.
going. Yeah.
No, I won't turn it on.
Okay, keep going.
I'll keep going. You turn the heater on. Competing. I'm not just training for something. I'm competing. There's another guy in another gym across town, and he and I are competing right now. It's not that the competition happens when we get on stage. The competition is all the way through this. I'm going to do this set. He's doing this set too, and he's going to want to do one more rep. He's going to want to go, one more set than me. So you're competing. It gives you a completely different mindset, right? So I competed for 3 years like that. I was competing. And then in my last preparation for the one where I won 2 gold medals and the overall championship cup, I was not competing at the gym. I was winning. If someone came up to me and said, oh, what are you training for? I'm like, I'm not training, I'm competing before that. But if they came up to me in that 3-month period and said, oh, what are you training for? I'm like, I'm not training, I'm winning. I'm not even competing, I'm winning. And I was winning all the way through. So every time I went out of the gym at the end, the door would open and I'd be like walking out for the big, to receive the cup, right? So when I walked out on stage to compete, I wasn't walking out to compete. I was walking out to receive the championship cup. Afterwards, Lenny, who was there, he said to me, it was like Caesar had come down to some remote Roman village, you know, some far-flung village in the countryside. The emperor had come. Sorry, I'm getting excited here.
Mm-hmm.
So after I competed, I won the 2 gold medals, and then I'm like, those are the divisions I entered. I hear my name being called, number 34, Josh Wolf. And I'm like, what? Put my medals down, go back out. What is this? I don't know, but I'm winning. And it was the overall championship, you know, the final showdown. I didn't ever expect to do that, and then I won it. Afterwards, I'm sitting in the audience, we're watching the other divisions, and I'm watching this one guy, and I'm like, this guy, man, if I was in his body, I could win this division. Because his conditioning was on point, his size, his proportionality, everything was great. Even his posing was good, but who he was being, Prahlad's sitting next to me, and Prahlad says to me, man, he looks like he's waiting for a bus. And I'm like, yeah, and he's pissed off because the bus is late. So, and I had to deal with this just before I went on. There's an automatic unconscious assessment. Am I going to win? And so just before I was about to go on, my brain was generating, nah, you blew it. You shouldn't have eaten that protein bar last night. Now you're going to have to go back and do a whole other 3 months preparation to compete again because you blew it with that one thing that you did. And I got that was happening. I distinguished it. It's the action of the mind. I put it aside. That's not real. It is the automatic unconscious assessment network firing and creating an assessment about my future success. Put that aside. Don't take actions that are consistent with that. And I put that aside and I said, okay, what is there for me to do now? Pull-ups. And so I started doing pull-ups. So the other performer on the stage, I could have won it, but his automatic unconscious assessment network was generating based on previous decisions, previous experience that had been collapsed into decisions in his associative network, was generating an unconscious automatic assessment of his future, you know, what the future looked like. And he was living into that, and it was giving him who he was being in the present. That's how the whole thing works.
Yeah. And yeah, it's so powerful when you are there, you know, in the forum. And that is the thing about human beings, you know, what we know, we think we know that, and that's all that exists, that is need to be known in the world. When in fact there is so much knowledge out there and so many experiences out there that we could create for ourselves.
You know, we said we would talk about the rest of the curriculum, right? Because we've just been talking about the forum.
I know, right?
But the thing is that you get that breakthrough in the forum, but you're not really at the source of how it happened. Like after participating for 6 years and being trained to lead Landmarks programs, and like constantly like looking at it and integrating it with the, you know, what I got from Krishna consciousness, which is philosophy of Vedic psychology. I've come to like, you know, an integrated understanding of it and being able to operate it to some level of degree of reliability and cause like, you know, breakthrough results ongoingly and continue to expand them. But if you just go and do the forum itself, I mean, that's great, but it is basically just like a brochure for what's possible out of participating in those programs.
Yeah.
I like 100% just do the thing as designed, the curriculum for living.
And you know, there's the other thing as well, that people, I don't know how many people don't have access to that, but I guess it's the mentality, how they go to the forum and how they get out and they go back to their old self of being. And they don't have like this progress in their life, is because they're not using it. It's like going to the, what was an example here? It's like, who wants to be looking fit? You know, who wants to be fit? Okay, so does going to the gym is the same as being in the gym and doing the workout? By thinking going to the gym doesn't give you the muscles, right? Yeah. So that's exactly like what happens, you know, when you actually are doing and using the distinctions, is where you have a lot of breakthroughs.
Yeah,
rather than, because this is this common thing about this, you know, I've been observing a lot of people that I speak to.
You keep speaking, I'm going to turn the heater on.
I did. I will do it.
Okay.
Give me 1 second.
Okay, you're speaking to a lot of people, You have to do it twice when it's on the timer. You turn it when the timer is on. No, do it again. Okay, it's on. When it's on the timer, you press the on button once, that turns it off.
Oh.
And then you press it a second time and it turns it on without the timer. That's how that
We're
works.
talking about the
heater, the gas heater. Yeah.
Anyways, so how life has been going for them, it's more in the world of thoughts, thinking, I'm thinking to go to the gym and have amazing body. I'm thinking to do this. I'm thinking that I have the knowledge and I can get done this. And that doesn't happen.
I paid multiple coaches over multiple years, posing coach, nutrition coach, a PT, exercise trainer, three different coaches.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to pay a mindset coach because I was participating in Landmark's programs and using the distinctions of Landmark to be able to access the performer. Because the mindset coaching is about the performer. But it's like, in reality, for me to operate at those kind of levels, it like takes something.
It does.
And it's like, that's just what is required. But, to do these programs, it's like less than doing a university course. It's less than doing many short, like you could do the entire curriculum for, I don't know, like a couple of $1,000 or something. Yeah. Like probably $2,000 to do the entire curriculum. And that would be like 6 months to a year of training. It's crazy. The only reason it's able to be offered at such a low price point is because of the business model with people participating for free. I mean, participating, like assisting without being paid. But those people who are assisting are also in a training and development program. So you can be coaching on a program, you can be part of the production assisting team, and you're like going to the next level of your own development in that. And as long as that's making sense for you and you're getting value out of it, it's a worthy trade-off. Because the other thing about it is that while you're doing that, you're aware that you're allowing the Landmark Forum to be delivered at such a low price point.
I think that is a really, if we talk and divide the price, I think that is a really good model.
People who have never paid for coaching and have never operated at elevated levels of performance in a domain are like $700, or I don't know, how much does it cost now?
$975.
Okay, but it's like 700 and something if you do it in an introduction. They have like financial incentive. Yeah, so it's like $700. It's like,
yeah, I think there is talking about this whole business processes for myself. I think it's great that I am, I am getting trained because
you're in a leadership training program now.
Yeah.
Did you have to pay to go into that?
Yeah.
When I did it, I didn't have to pay.
But not that much.
I didn't pay anything for the one I went in. That was because in Brisbane, you had to fly down to Sydney for 4 weekends. So they were like, well, since you have to fly down and that's going to be a cost to participate, then we'll make the program free. No tuition.
But now that's online. What's good about it? Like if people really wants to take their life seriously, if they really value their life living in this world, and if they really want to do something valuable for themselves and their future and whatever else maybe in the life of other people, train yourself. Do something for yourself that is going to elevate you where you are, like your performance in any area.
I would put it slightly differently from that, because someone could listen to that and say, oh, you're saying that I can't do anything valuable without doing Landmark programs.
Well, people are saying that because they're saying that. I didn't say that.
Yeah.
What I say is what I said, and that's it. What I said is,
if you want to do something valuable in life
for yourself. Yeah, I know South America's different way of speaking. I know it can land like that, but I don't mean that. It's do this program that is going to take you to a different level. It doesn't mean what you're doing is wrong or bad. It's just this program is going to just, like you say, your brain, I think, says It's like a fuel and your
rocket fuel. And I'd put it slightly differently.
Okay, you can do it. Okay.
Yeah, I would say if you're interested in elevated levels of performance and in elevating your performance, this is a powerful access to that. It adds velocity to your commitments. It is like putting rocket fuel in your engine. Like, could I have won that bodybuilding competition without participating in these programs and structures? And I'll tell you, when I won the competition, I wasn't in any landmark program, and I hadn't been participating in any landmark programs for over a year. So it's not that this is like something where you get hooked on the IV and then you have to keep shooting it up. I hadn't participated in any programs for a year when I did that, and I've been, focusing, dealing with all the pandemic and everything, and then by using the distinctions to do it. So they give you like a reliable access to elevated performance over time. If you just do the forum though, I don't know that you get that. Basically, it's kind of like it is your participation, but the forum leader is doing the magic. The forum, the design of the forum leader, because you walk out of that, and I walked out of it and just went, what happened? What happened, and how did they do that? I was clear 100% that something miraculous, unprecedented, something very extraordinary had happened in that weekend. And I was like, and I have no idea how that was done or what was done that had that happen. That's why I put myself in the Introduction Leaders program, because I was like, I have to understand this. I have to understand what this and how they did that. Because I was like, man, they synthesized the entire process of Sankhya Yoga and like the people's practice of that into 3 days. But like, what are the active? Because I was sitting there and I was doing my own assessments and judgments of the Landmark Forum leader, right? My assessments and judgments of him look like, if it was me standing there right now, what would I do? What would I say? And I was just like, that, what? Like,
I know.
What? Like, what? I was like, he is seeing the world and he's experiencing what's happening here in a way that's completely distinct from me. Like, if you put me in that, some people will sit there and go, oh yeah, you just get a guy who's just going to be like loud and dominating and everything. I was like, nah, I've been at the front of rooms and in situations and being loud and dominating and doing all this kind of stuff, and it doesn't produce these results. If you've never done that, you might think that that's what's happening. Oh, who does this guy think he is? He's standing up the front of the room. And look, I've led events and spoken to large groups of people, as a Hare Krishna preacher, and been involved in like counseling people and dealing with all kinds of stuff like that for decades at that point, and was just like, I don't know how they train this guy, or like, is it a particular type of person? Like, how is he doing this and what is he doing? So if you just did the forum and you had that experience and you get that breakthrough there, I think it would be difficult to sustain it or to reliably reproduce it. But like, by participating in the entire curriculum, you develop a degree of mastery of what you're doing. And look, it's like, I used to say this to devotees in the ashram. It's like, hey man, you coming in here, you spent, how many hours have you spent watching TV in your life? And it's created a whole kind of thing in your brain of watching television. So what do you think it's going to take to unbrainwash that into Prabhupada's books? You're going to have to read like this Bhagavatam. Like, you're going to have to read it and study it as much as you have watched TV in order to counteract it. So it's just a no-brainer. You go to the forum and you're like, well, this really rocks, and let me find out how to be able to do this reliably for myself on demand.
Yeah, for yourself. When I was saying, like, if you want to take your life to a different level, I don't mean in a diminishing way. I mean it like this. I mean it in a way of like, I see human beings like, you are incredibly powerful and you don't know it. You don't have access to that full power. You have a little bit, but you don't.
There's more.
There's
more.
Unlimited. And, for me, it's like, do it. For me, I take it as a self-love.
Look, I've done lots of courses and lots of things, but I'm not this passionate about any of the others. I had lunch with John C. Maxwell, done his leadership, 5 levels of leadership training. I've been to Annie Stanley's church. like all that stuff. But the thing about it, about all of that is so valuable.
It is. We're not diminishing
And
that. Yeah.
and it was when I did the Landmark Forum that it made it even more valuable, because suddenly I had access to the performer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had all this knowledge. It's like the Landmark Forum makes you powerful and effective with what you already know. It is like putting rocket fuel in your engine. It's like any kind of car that you got, whatever it is, wherever you're driving to, you put this fuel additive in the engine and it will make your car go faster and more efficiently. It's like there's nothing else that operates like that I've encountered. There might exist something like that.
Yeah.
I don't discount its existence, but yeah.
Now, and you know what? One of the things as well, when you say that, just came to my head. My sister just did it no long ago over the weekend. And you know what? I keep standing for her. Say, hey, I want you to do it, because for me, it's like the sooner you do it, the miracles you will start discovering for yourself. Mm-hmm. And as a sister, it's like, I really want you to do that, because I experienced something incredible, and I just want it. If I could give it to you right now, I would, but that doesn't depend on me, right? And she's like, no, I'm doing my therapy. My therapist is working wonderful. Like, I'm not saying that, I'm not diminishing all of that. Like, she was just like, all of that. Like, okay, it's fine. Look, I want you to do it and don't delay it, And she delayed it. Like, okay. Anyways, there's sometimes so much we can do for people. After all, it's their decisions, right?
Of course it is.
And my mother did it. My younger sister did it. And guess what? They were just like off the roof. And they actually say, to my other sister that's in the US, they say, do it now. You have to
Really?
do it.
They said that.
Yeah, they say that. You know what?
Yeah.
And because my sister,
because they were brainwashed and they became marketers for Landmark. yeah, in quotes.
In quotes, yeah. And me just checking, hey, do you have everything that you need for your session? Because I know it's gonna start sometime soon. It's like, yeah, she actually says, yeah, ma'am, and our sisters, they just, pull me from the hair, from the ears, and I have to do it, and I've got everything sorted. Like, yes, at least there is some people that already experienced that, and they already know that is wonderful and powerful, and is letting her, because she was like into her world of what I'm doing. It's doing so good, and nothing else can go any better than this.
Sure.
It's like, okay, because I experienced it, and I already been through counseling and all of that.
Yeah.
I know the difference. Therefore, this is only I can share with you, but the person doesn't have access to my experience. And
this is why people occur as like religious fanatics who've done the forum,
exactly.
talking to other people
about it. Yes. And then the first day she was on the course, she's just like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing with my life now. I was like,
she was brainwashed.
I was like, you know what, sister? Don't say that. And I was like, you know what? I knew it. That's why I want you to do it ASAP.
I'm just saying that someone listening to this could generate for themselves that, these people are just being brainwashed.
What? It's not.
Yeah, it's dopamine. You get a whole lot of people in a room and then you tell them a bunch of stuff, and people. Anyway, it's the cynicism and the resignation of human beings that
exactly.
they it's like the scientists and Galileo with his telescope. This is apocryphal, telling the church officials, look through the telescope and you can see that the earth revolves around the sun. And they're like, we don't need to look through the telescope. We already know that it doesn't. So they're not open to actually discovering anything else. So with the Landmark Forum, you can just turn it into they're brainwashed, and people who are really enthusiastic about it and the difference that it made are actually brainwashed and, doing free marketing for Landmark.
That's what I think, but it's not. Anyways, and then the second day, the third day, it's like this incredible opening of a new world for her, that she could see, she could see the world, how it's running, and how she was running her world, and what was running her being. And she was just like off the charts, incredible, appreciating that actually, we were standing for her to do that, and that she has access to that. To the point, like, she went and called my brother and said, you know what, this is what I'm doing, sharing herself and blah, blah, blah. And my brother saying, no, I'm doing what I'm doing. I already accepted things as they are. And, I did my thing and all of that, his view of the world and how he was content what he was doing. But, I keep standing. I said, look, and my sister shares like, okay, what can you see now? How human beings are in the world? Can you see yourself in him?
For me, doing the Landmark Forum, it brought and doing Landmark programs in the curriculum has brought so much of the content of Prabhupada's books to life in 3D. Like even this one we were just looking at before, right?
Mhm.
This one here, 1814. The 5 factors of action. This comes from some particular, if you look into the into the tradition that this comes from, it's like Bhagavad Gita is known as the Gita Upanishad because it basically summarizes and it puts and integrates a lot of this different parts of the Vedic philosophy together into a package.
Yeah.
This one sutra here, the place of action, the body, the performer, the various senses, the many different kinds of endeavor, and ultimately the supersoul, these are the 5 factors of action. So the many different kinds of endeavor is like doing your couples communication course and learning about different techniques that you can use in your communication. Oh, you just need to listen to your wife more and you need to say nice words to her. It's like, well, no kidding. Everyone already knows that. The issue is the performer, because I know that you're supposed to do that stuff. And I also know that I don't do that stuff, and I don't know why I don't do it. I don't know why I reliably can't do that, right? So you have to look at the performer. When my wife says something to me in a particular way, it triggers something in the associative decision matrix in the brain of this human body that then generates an assessment of the future that then drives my actions in the present. And unless I can get an access to the performer, which means an access, what are the levels of the performer? The body, the mind, and then the mind has its different aspects. And one of them is this collection of these samskaras. Unless I can have something that gives me an access to that, this thing is basically what I'm left with is, this is the performer and it's just the way that I am. And basically I either have to suck it up and we just have to live with this unworkability, or I need to find another partner who kind of does match with me or something, or I'm just fundamentally broken.
Yay.
So, like just so much of it's just so much of it. It's just so nectar because it's Vedic.
Yeah.
It's knowledge. It's a Vedic science, and it's been packaged in a particular way.
Yeah. And that's the experience of my sister. So she can see how the human beings are. Now that she did the Landmark Forum, she could not see that for herself. Once she did it, she could see the fundamental way of being for human beings, and she could see
herself
and my brother. And I asked her, can you see yourself in him? She was like, no. Now I'm going to ask her the question again. Can you see yourself in him? She paused. It's kind of like she was having difficulty to access to that. It's like, okay, remember when I stood for you and I said this? How was your reaction? What was your reaction? What did you start doing? What did you start defending? He is doing the same. Can you see yourself? She was like, yeah, I can see myself. Now, it's okay to be that way. But what we're going to do, we're going to stand for him because he matters to us. And he's going to have access that we have access, and he's going to be powerful, who really is. In reality, he's this human being that's powerful, full of amazing things to discover and to do in life. But whatever happened to him, the decisions he made is engulf him, and he's living in this tiny world, engaged with this. And then, I had a discussion with my brother, and we talk like what area of your life he wants to develop, or he wants to take it to the next level. And we just I was asking the questions like, do you want that? Yes. And I want you to make a powerful decision. Do you want to do this for him? He said, yes. Welcome. And that is the thing that you get to see, how human beings we are we create our own bubble, and we don't want to get out of that bubble because this is our reality. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's nothing bad about it. It is just we create this bubble, and it doesn't let us be the really who really we are as a spirit souls, human beings.
So he's registered?
Yeah. We just need to pay.
Okay, so he's not registered.
He's registering, yeah.
He's registering, but he's
Yeah.
not registered yet.
Yeah.
Okay. When I did the advanced course, Zoe Master was leading it. And it was in there, she talked about her high performance relationship with her husband. And then I did a forum later with Kathy Elliott. I was on the production team in that forum. So Kathy Elliott, she's a Australian forum leader, lives in the US. She's like a executive in Landmark, but she's a very high-powered forum leader. And each of these forum leaders, I've seen forum leaders who are new and are leading just directly out of the manual, just like an introduction leader. And then I've seen forum leaders who are delivering this thing where they are so at the source of it that it literally is just a powerful coaching conversation. And like in the first forum that I did, the forum leader led it exactly from the manual. And so he was like, create a distinction, what happened, the story you tell yourself about what happened, and then coach people on that. I did this other forum, and I was looking back at it. The forum leader did not create any distinctions from the syllabus. And I was sharing about it last night, and I was like, on the first day where there was the parents conversation, and then the second day where there was the child conversation. And then I was like, what am I talking about? That's not in the syllabus anywhere. And I went back and mentally reviewed that forum. And I remember at the time thinking like, this guy he has no manual. He's not leading from he's not creating any of these distinctions. And there were these distinctions in that forum that are not in the forum now. And so he just was so at the source of what he was doing that he was just creating this with people. I was like, out of this forum here, out of the first forum that I did where he led it from the manual, I was left with, there is obviously a structured technology at work here, and I don't understand how it's structured and how it functions, and I'm going to find out. Out of that second forum, I just walked out of it just going it was incredible what got created in there, and for me. Out of doing that second forum there that I did, that must have been 2016, that one. I had this credit card with $10,000 owing on it, and I paid it within a week coming out of that forum. But I was just left with that one. People in that forum have got no idea of how that was done. It was you would only be left with he was a magician.
It feels like that
because it's one
magic.
Thing. Yeah, it's one thing when you can see that the leader is creating magic, but they're using a spell book or whatever, right? They're using some kind of, it's like watching someone cook, and then they are using a recipe book, like Korma's Feast book, right? Which we got over there, Feast. What is it called? Quantity Cooking for Krishna's Kitchen. It's one thing when you see someone create an amazing feast out of that, and you're like, oh, it's a recipe book, I could do that. It's another thing when someone walks into the kitchen with no recipe book or whatever, and just looks at what's in there and just goes bam and makes this amazing, 7 preparation feast out of it. And that was what that second forum was like. And that was a guy who had led the forum for 30, 40 plus years. It was magic.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know why I was sharing that, but anyway.
Well, because it has a lot of significance. The experience of that is magic for you, so you want to share it.
Yeah,
it's so magic, it's incredible. And I love how powerful these human beings are. And
yeah, I'm just really present how much I love it.
And
the integration with Srila Prabhupada's books, and there's no contradiction between them.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's way more this one gives more point to the mind, the false ego, and all of that, and then you just get
yeah. And so in our next episode, third and final one in this segment about Landmark, we're going to talk about being a leader at Landmark. And
amazing.
and that differs from being a participant. So maybe we'll start that one off a little bit, talking a bit about coaching and the assisting structure, and then like becoming a leader at Landmark and how that works, and maybe even the business model and how they all fit together. Yeah, because people have questions about that. They're like, where does all the money go? You know? So anyway, we can speak from our own personal experience in that. I mean, the fact that the things are so cheap, it's crazy cheap, and then it's subsidized as a business by the fact that many people who are involved in the production and the delivery of these things are themselves in a training and development program.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing it as part of their training and development and not being paid to do it. And that's actually integral to the entire well, anyway, there's like many different kind of aspects to that, but we'll talk about that in the next episode.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you want to say to complete this episode?
No, I'm crying. No, I'm not. I'm just like so privileged to have access to this new world of living a life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, being conscious about all the things that I'm doing, the decisions that I'm making, the assessments, the judgments, and everything. And then the mind, you know, how the mind is just like so turbulent. So turbulent. And, you know, giving yourself, watching it and interacting with it or taking yourself away, it's, you know, it's a decision that we make. So it's a good journey for me. Because as a female, you know, the emotions, the feelings are right there. And because of the emotions and the feelings, you're making decisions based on them. And then how to create that world where your emotions and decisions are put in aside, your intelligence is here, and your soul, you know, but just watching them and just taking as you wanted to, constructing what you need, and till you take what you need for that construction. It's so powerful. So you know, all of this is basically Krishna's will, and it's a blessing that I have access to that.
Yeah, it was interesting what you said one time. You said, you're quoting Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I am the ability in man. So obviously, you know, they're empowered to do this.
Yeah, they're empowered. And you know what? Not only empowered, these souls have came to this world to do that. And I don't know what stages of human beings are in the evolution system, but for me to have access to this and also have access to Krishna consciousness is just a Krishna. You really orchestrating this because you really know what I need, and you just bam, you throw in there like, go girl, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And having Krishna consciousness where I feel like this is a safe world for me because I have Krishna, the most powerful in all universes, is holding me, and there is nothing he cannot see. I just feel like, you know, and having now this access in this material world and having access to the landmark form distinctions, I'm just like, you know what? Now I have to be fully responsible for what I do, how I think, and what I think. And that is so powerful for me. And Krishna is all knowledge. And if you can have access, and if you, well, you do have access to this type of knowledge, Krishna is that too. And that's how I take it. All of this knowledge is Krishna, and I'm so appreciative. Yeah.
Great. Well, I acknowledge you for being Krishna conscious and being such a stand for people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, people can have a marvelous life. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for tuning in, including on the replay. Leave your questions, comments, share your experiences in the comments, and we will read them and respond to them later. Let's roll the, I think they've fixed the brand issue, so we can roll our outro at least. Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam, total world victory of Hare Krishna.
Take 4. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, oh Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Okay.
Okay. Take 4.
Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, oh Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Okay.
Okay. Take 4.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,